Hi there, welcome back. This is an extension to my last video about the first Python program to swap two numbers using a third variable. I just thought it would be a good explanation if I could put some more facts to this video. So one thing that we have to understand is every program has a certain structure. Everything, like most programs, typically, tend to have something as input, which is like the user makes, provides some information to the program, and then what the computer does then is to follow the steps that have been provided to it as a program, and then it does what is known as processing. Pardon my terribly hopeless handwriting or drawing skills for that matter. And then once the information has got processed, it outputs the result, so to speak, right? So this is known as the output. So we have to understand that there are these three phases, and the output happens to be either like something that is shown on the display, like a file getting created or something getting printed. All these are forms of output. Input typically is is things like typing in through your keyboard, or some sort of a mouse input, or it could be some voice input, a video input, whatever, right? It could be lots of things which could be input. For just for our purposes, for these like for the scope of the programs that are going to be written in first PUC, let's assume that it's going to be some keyboard entry that's done essentially to the program. Okay, so let's just get done. Let's move on to the actual problem, right? Swap two numbers. Now let's assume that there are two variables. There is a variable. Variable is nothing but a placeholder. Okay, so there is a name associated with a placeholder, and let's say there is this box which I call as X, and then there is this other box which I call as Y, and these are placeholders. You can actually put anything here. Okay, let's, like in the example that I provided, I believe that I said that you can place an apple on the right hand side, and on your left hand you would put an orange, right? Let's assume that these circles here seemingly uh, contain orange or an apple. Let's come back to the actual numbers later. So what we're saying is, on to the variable X you assign a value of orange, to the variable Y we assign uh, a value of apple. Okay, so now we have this situation. At the end of this process, what we actually want to happen is, on X we must have an apple, right? On the variable Y we must have the orange, right? Thus we would have achieved the swap. So how would you do that, right? So I described in my earlier video that, let's say imagine having these on your left and right hands, X being your left hand and Y being your right hands. These could be the perfect analogies to the placeholder variables that we're speaking about here. So now, what you would do is, one of the easiest ways of doing the swap is to use the temporary variable. Let's bring in a temporary variable called t. Okay, so let this variable t be the temporary variable, and this also is a placeholder, right? As a first step, what would you do? You would take your, probably you could, let's say you take your apple here, and then you move it onto this plate here. You understand? So what we do is, we take the apple and we move it here. What happens right now is that we're going to be getting rid of the apple here, so to speak, and then we would have the apple here. Now, what has happened right now is that the variable Y, this placeholder, is empty at this point in time. Do you realize that? You realize that this placeholder is empty at this point, right? At this point, what do we do? The next step that we have, the second step that we're going to take, is that we're going to move the orange from our left hand to the right hand, or from the variable X to the variable Y. So what's going to happen? We are going to move the orange here. The way it's going to happen is that we're going to get rid of the orange on the left hand, and then we're going to slowly move it to the right hand, right? What you see right now is that the left hand, or the X variable, is empty at this point in time. What you do next is that You move the apple from the temporary variable to the variable x, right? Now temp is still going to be like, okay, don't worry about what the content of t is, but it's probably going to be still apple here. But we're talking of variables. We're actually not talking of apples and oranges, right? So let's go back and do this exercise with a small trace of our program. So imagine that x carries a variable carries uh, x is a variable which currently has the value 25 assigned to it, and let's assume that y currently has a variable has a number 100 assigned to it. Now we want this to be exchanged at this point in time. So what do? You bring in a variable called t, and then you say you assign the value of x to this one. So what is the effective position at this point in time? X effective position is temp becomes the value of x, which is 25. X is also 25 now, but t is also 25 at this point in time. So what we've done is we have kind of carefully saved the value 25 in a temporary variable called t. Now at this point in time, what we do is we take x, okay, and we move the value of y to this. Okay, we assign the value of y to this. What happens after this is that x becomes what is y, which is 100. At this point in time, you have to realize that x is still 25 and then y is 100. Okay, you realize that, right? Now at this point in time, x became 100 because x got assigned the value of y, which is 100, and then y is still 100 because nothing changed in y at this point in time, right? And then temp is still 25, right? Temp has the original value of x stored. The next step is you take y and then you assign it the value of the variable t. So at this point, what happens is y becomes the value t. T is 25, right? So y becomes 25 at this point, and then x remains uh, x is 100 at this point in time, as you can see here, right? X is 100, and then t is probably 25 at this point. And we don't care about what t is at the end of it, right? Now, if you realize where have we reached? We have reached this position where x is equal to 100 and y is equal to 25. We have reached the position that we wanted to be in, right? So, and we used a third variable which we call as temp in this program, as you can see here, right? And that's what allows us to get to this position. I hope you understood this. Thank you.